I always love to start out with your story, how you got into the spiritual work you're doing and breath work and all the things. So give us a little background on you.
Mm, I feel like it's such a long story. Short, I will say that I was very closed off to spirituality because I thought, people are often afraid of what they don't understand. And a lot of my conditioning was exactly that. And so I had this big crisis that happened in my life that really had me searching for more. It was just like this sequence of things that fell into place for me and really, really opened my heart and awakened me to being more open and really taking the time to understand. I'm really a science junkie. And so also because there was a lot of people around me at that time who were very like closed-minded, I felt like if I was going to share this magic that I had found, which felt so beautiful and so like heart-opening, that I was going to need to have these like explanations and the science and all of these things, which so good to have in my back pocket, although I don't need them as much anymore. Yeah, so that's basically it. The teacher arrives when the student is ready, and I had one teacher and mentor after another, almost like like going to university. It was like you took this class and then this class and then this one, and they just built upon each other until, here I am.
I love that. And I want to just give a little attention to kind of your journey, how it is like your own school in a way. I think a lot of times we can get into the idea like, I need to have this official education, this, but it's like if we just allow ourselves and open ourselves up to what we're ready to receive, I just think your story is so beautiful that way. That, the next thing always it appeared, and it may not look like in our conditional world what it's supposed to look like.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So kind of, we're going to talk a little bit about breath work or a lot about breath work, whatever we want to really go on, talk here. But I want to understand, like, what was it about breath work that really took you into it? That really now you're building a practice along with so many other things too, but primarily breath work. Like, what was it that really drew you into it?
Yeah, so it found was at I can't remember if it was our graduating ceremony from like life coaching school, but we had a retreat and it was with, my mentor, and she had different guests come in and different workshops, and we didn't really know what to expect. I don't even think it was said like breath work beforehand or anything like that. It was just like, these are today's workshops. And, we went in and it was just, at first I was a little like, okay, this is kind of interesting. We laid down, we began the breath. And I didn't quite know what I was getting myself into, but I was like an all or nothing at that moment. Like I wanted the full experience. And so I remember a woman doing it for us. She said, if at any time you need some grounding, just raise your hand and let me know. And because I was giving it my all. I kind of like wanted to raise my hand. I didn't. And I just remember thinking like, whoa, because this felt like such an out of body experience. I was like, what is this?
Mm.
And I had this very, very profound healing in that moment. I remember laughing and crying and feeling all sorts of things. And then by the time I knew it, it was over. We got to sit and just share, and everybody in that circle had such beautiful experiences. Well, after that, I came home and I put it on my vision board. I was like, one of these days, I need to share this work. I need to, train with this mentor. And so it sat for a really long time. And in the meantime, I had, joined other people's online breath work. I didn't have anything local like that I knew, but I had my husband try it with me. He fell in love with it. And so lo and behold, one day the training came up and I was telling my husband, oh, David Elliott is having this training and I would really like to go. It was like a week long experience. And he said, let's do it. And I said, oh, let's do it? Like, you want to do it with me? And he was like, yeah. So he really resonated because I had him doing the breath work also. It just fell into place. Now we hold these monthly workshops on our land and offer breath work. And it's just a really beautiful thing to see people experience such profound healing.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I can totally relate to your first experience with breathwork, because I too went to something similar and had no idea what I was in for. My dear friend Carrie was hosting it and I really had no idea. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give it my all. And we'll get into this a little more, but there's a time where it's like, I don't know if I can do this because it challenges you and the mind gets, in the way. That's where always our biggest obstacle. But the experience was undeniable. It was, it was honestly, Bernadette, it was the first time I felt the presence of my guides, of
Mm.
like beings beyond this realm, where I didn't like I felt like maybe I knew, but like knew I had the experience and I knew I didn't need anyone or anything to tell me to deny it anything. I just knew in my heart. And it was so beautiful and so profound. And what I really want to talk about is kind of the accessibility for breathwork because we talked about this kind of our pre-podcast is like there is something so profound here and what's amazing is you're just using the breath. You're not needing to go away for a whole week to a medicine journey like we talked about. So I think that's something that people can really relate to.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's actually why I fell in love with it because when I entered the space of, more open-minded spiritual people, I knew that they were having these also amazing medicine journeys, going to Peru and doing like ayahuasca and like all these beautiful things. And they would come back and share like, wow, this is profound and amazing. And so when I had the breathwork experience, I was like, this is that without the medicine.
Mm.
And for me, it was like I have a lot of trauma around my childhood. My mom, unfortunately, was addicted to drugs, and so I had a very dramatic, like, my whole being is just like anti, like, oh my gosh, like I didn't want to put any substances in my body. I remember thinking when I was little, like, there's no way I'll ever do that to myself. And with the breath work, I feel like I get that experience and don't have to take anything outside of myself. And I can be totally and completely available if my kids need me.
Yes.
So, my phone's on do not disturb. They know to call twice if it's an emergency or something like that. And I can very easily start breathing through the nose and be, right here back in my body. And, I'll go run to do whatever I got to do. So that's very important to me because I did at one point when I wasn't ready, try psilocybin for that, that experience. And it was like all this trauma came in, like, I'm a bad mom. And it's not at all that because that's not obviously the intention behind it. But what I like to tell people who maybe have a similar trauma or just aren't open to plant medicine, this is the closest you can get with absolutely nothing. And I would say it's the same, if not better. I hear a lot of people say so.
I mean, you really can get such a similar psychedelic experience and you're in control. There's no aftermath. There's no like a lot of ceremonies you have to like do a whole dieta and prepare the body. It's like, I mean, obviously you don't want to eat a big fat greasy burger before you go do a breathwork session, but you can get these profound experiences that are undeniable. And it's so amazing that we can do that with just, and I don't want to say just our breath, like with our breath. And,
Yeah.
so feel that for many people, and we had another conversation about the control issue, because that's
Mhm.
another thing too. A lot of people don't want to do these plant medicines because they don't want to be out of control. And that's
Yeah.
what's so beautiful about this work, right?
Right. Because at any moment, you just return to your natural breath if you
Mm.
need to take a break. And that happens naturally. I think also just during, if we do like 45 minutes of breath work, you'll breathe and you'll feel, I'll say this first 7 minutes, you're like, okay, this is work. What am I doing? You're still very much in your conscious mind. After that's passed, you completely lose track of time. You're in this meditation, your body's vibrating, like you're feeling the tingles, and you're just having, I feel like your spirit, your soul, your subconscious mind, just like all of these things are coming up. And so I've had experiences where I've actually been able to revisit the past and see something that I needed to see that was probably tucked away in my subconscious mind, to not be able to like access. But that was very healing for me. A lot of creativity and downloads pop in, like, oh, of course I should do that. You know, there's that bliss state where you feel connected to spirit in a way that you don't feel, when you're just walking around. It's amazing. The things that can come through, I mean, everyone has a different experience. And every time you do it as an individual, you have a different experience. So I tell people never go in with an expectation, set an intention, and kind of just see what happens. Like be here for it because you'll always get exactly what you need. And,
Mm.
it's wonderful to see after circles like this, after we hold ceremony, people come out and they're like blown away because again, they may have not known what they were getting themselves into because I feel like breath work is a very broad,
Yes. Yeah, so true. It's so, well, first, I kind of want to talk about the process of the breath work because I feel like one, if people have a deeper understanding of what they're getting into, I think sometimes we'd like to have a map. Okay, this is where I'm going. This is kind of how I get there. I don't know how the journey is going to unfold from here to there. Like you have to experience it yourself. But there are some certain things about breath work I think would be helpful for people that have not done it before to I don't know, maybe ease their mind around it, especially if they're like, I don't know. Because I don't, again, you don't want to set expectations because that's another thing. Everyone's experience is different, yet there are some similarities in the experience. Like you said, for example, the first 7 minutes can be challenging. Now, I don't know, would you agree to that? Because it can be because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can continue doing this, right? We get in our way. And then there's a point though, I'm just going to say it, it was almost like my body begins to do it itself, like without me even doing it. Have you experienced something similar to that?
Yeah, yeah. And it's almost like you want more. So your body just keeps going for
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Yes. You're like, how much more can I create here?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll explain what it looks like.
Okay,
So
perfect.
usually someone comes in for a breathwork session, preferably laying down is what that's the best way to kind of open the throat and make sure there's a lot of air coming through since all of the breathing is done through the mouth. And then it's a three-part breath. So you're breathing deeply into your belly, like then into the upper chest and out through the mouth. And so it's all done through the mouth. And it's just, you're doing this for the entire session. And eventually you start to flood your body with oxygen. And, the endorphins kick in, all, your hypothalamus gland, your third eye, everything starts getting activated. And so suddenly you have all this energy moving through your body. And that's kind of where those experiences come in because we're not breathing like that on a normal basis. And it's not hyperventilating, it's nothing like that. So some people have said, is it like hyperventilating? No, it's not that at all. It's very controlled and it's enjoyable actually. After the first 7 minutes, it is enjoyable
Mhm.
and you feel the time go by really quickly. For the sessions, I always recommend an eye cover because that helps you to go in like deeper, faster, right? Like kind of like when you're going to sleep, but being in the dark helps. Applying chapstick because you're breathing through the mouth. So, your lips might get dry. Having a water bottle handy in case you're like needing to take a break and just have a sip of water. But really, that's it. That's
Mhm.
it. Yeah. And something else I like to share is that sometimes people have these things happen in their body, and I like to ease their mind and let them know, like, this is all normal. So sometimes you can have like these little crab hands, right? Like
Yes.
tetany. And that's really just an invitation to release control and open the heart. It's all about the heart. So I like to, give that. And then also, I've always gotten a little pressure, like in my third eye. And
Mhm.
my teacher says, Bernadette, like release control. That's you trying to control the experience. And so again, just kind of being conscious of like, oh, my hands are tightening. That just means I have to open my heart more. Or,
Mhm.
oh, I'm getting a little pressure in between my eyebrows. I need to release control. And so those are really helpful things to know because those might happen. And I know, people who aren't expecting that might be like, what in the world is happening? So yeah.
Oh, I think that's so helpful because I didn't know anything about the hands. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? But once you can get past that, because the body, it does come to normal, nothing's going on. But there is this, there's this, if you can get past that, there's just this, like you said, this like bliss state. And for me, I know you just said it too, like I've had like instantaneous healings. And I'm not saying this is what you need to go for or expect. But this was my experience. My right hip was constantly achy. And I just said, whatever energy needs to be released. And it was like the entire session was on that right hip. And afterwards I had no pain. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was
Yeah.
unbelievable. Now again, you don't want to set expectations, but these are the experiences that I
Yeah.
think there can be these instantaneous healings, insights, ahas, like you said, these creative things that come through because it is true, like you're really getting out of the conscious, that like chitter chatter. You're rising above that so much.
Yeah. And for what you just said, I feel like, the body doesn't forget, it holds the memory. So sometimes we have these little things, tucked in, whether they're emotions, suppressed emotions, or beliefs, or, just stuff that doesn't serve us, but it's all tucked away and hidden nice and neat in the body so we can't access it. And when we do the breath work, it's like turning the faucet on and doing a deep clean is kind of what it feels like. You're like bringing in all this oxygen and it's like, oh, okay, let's get rid of this. This doesn't belong.
Yes.
And it's kind of like sorting out all the
Mm.
things behind the scenes is kind of how I see it. So that's why a lot of people have physical healings like that. And then we also have like the more spiritual healings, of things that we might have been holding on to and things like that.
Oh my goodness. So how do you integrate this? So you do online and then you do in person? Like how do you facilitate these things?
Yeah. So in person, we have a yurt in our backyard. We live in the forest, not too far from Santa Fe, and we hold the space here. Occasionally, we'll rent out a space and do it in town, things like that. And then online on Zoom, we're offering Zoom sessions for one-on-one, and then once a month, I offer one just to the community and open it up.
I love that online. You do that once a
Yeah.
month?
Yeah.
Wow. I love that.
And so it is a different experience. There is an element to being in person.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's still good to have that. I will say also, okay, you can do this on your own. I would recommend once you're comfortable with it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and you know what to expect. And we kind of went through all of this here. Like it's not something you can't do on your own, but it's so beautiful and so powerful to have a facilitator
Mhm.
guiding you, prompting you,
Yeah.
encouraging you, and really holding that space for you. So yeah.
I completely agree with that 150%. Like, because again, we tend to get in our own way. Sometimes that little nudge, that little outside assistance and guidance is like everything that we need to keep us going so we can get into that, like, that spiritual portal, whatever that is. And I'll say, I've done online sessions and I've done in person, and I've had just as incredible experiences either way.
Oh yeah.
But of course, being with people is so great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And, is there anything scientifically that you want to share with us regarding breath work? Are there any things that, or maybe some things you've seen from your practice that it helps benefit? Just some things to put in their pocket to be like, a little more fuel to maybe give it a shot.
Yeah, so there have been actually several studies now on what breath work can do for the body. So absolutely the physical healing, they're starting to track that. Depression, anxiety, because you're just like cleaning up, right? We can't make any claims and say like, hey, this is gonna heal you, but it has been shown to have some benefits for, I mean, almost everything, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. And I just want to note too, like how you said, like turning on a faucet and doing a deep cleaning, like just the imagination, you can let your imagination understand, like bringing the oxygen, it's like bringing space into those like tight, dense areas. That's how I experienced it. Like the space was so expanded in me that I could feel where I was holding that energy. And it was like the body just knew exactly what it needed to do because you're not doing anything but breathing. Like that's the beautiful part. Because I think a lot of times we're like, I have to do this and I have to do this and I have to do this healing and I need to. It's like in the end, it's like all you're doing is breathing. Like that's the only thing you have to do, and the body does everything else.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, for those people, like getting to yoga, or getting to the gym,
Yeah,
like half the battle.
that's it.
Once you're there and you're immersed in it, you're like, oh, okay. And you're so glad that
Yes,
you did it.
every
And
time.
that's how breath work is. It's a little bit of like, okay, you got to set the intention, you got to create the space,
Yeah.
you got to get there, you got to start the process, pass those 7 minutes, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I made space for this today. So that's amazing. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, and then I think too, sometimes, just like it can do really deep healing, right? But if we do it on a regular basis, kind of just like working out, right? We're constantly just clearing. We don't wait to sweep till, it's a disaster. We just keep sweeping every day. And
Yes. It's like
yeah,
it's maintenance.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I never thought about that. I definitely want to start doing it more. And every time I do it, I'm like, I need to do this more often. But can you do something like that every day? Like, what's your, I mean, if you
Yeah.
were to say, yeah, how often would you do it?
Yeah, about 3 times a week
Okay.
is honestly what I can keep up with because it's a lot. I mean, unless you're very committed, there are some people who can do it every day,
Wow.
but it's just we're moms, we're busy,
Yeah.
we're working, we're doing all of these things. And so creating the space is most of it. But yeah, definitely people can do it every day.
Okay.
It's a spiritual practice, really. It feels like it gets you into the heart space
Hmm.
deeper than anything I've ever experienced.
I love that. And I think there's a really good point too that you alluded to is it's self-care. It's just like anything else. It's another form of self-care that mothers can do. And, just like yoga or working out or being in nature, yet this practice really does expand that spiritual experience that no one else can have or explain unless you have it yourself. It's like you have to get your own evidence. You have to go and experience it yourself to understand. Like there really are no words to express the experiences that you can have in breathwork.
Yeah. And because you have a different experience every time,
Yes.
it's not consistent. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
not something you can describe. That's, I think, what kind of trips people up sometimes because they're like, well, what can I expect? And it's like, well,
Yeah.
you can, stay open-minded, keep your heart open, set an
Yeah.
intention, and whatever comes up will be exactly what you need.
I
That's
love.
usually just how I go about it.
Yes, and I'll say, I have done not all the medicine ceremonies, but I've done a lot of medicine ceremonies, and a lot of them you can have very traumatic experiences. Now, I'm not saying you can't have traumatic experience in breath work, but in my experience, I have never had really trauma. Like anything that comes up, you're in still in that space of control.
Mhm.
It's not something you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to be here for another 6 hours? Like, no, you just start breathing through your nose and you're back to reality, which
Yeah.
is so beautiful because then you can get out of the fear. What am I going to see? What is it going to bring up? Like, it's very beautiful and very gentle way to heal and to have that spiritual experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's my favorite thing in the world. That's why I do it. That's why I teach it because it's just so profound.
I love that. So you have a free gift for us.
I do. And so I'm actually, you can find me in two places.
Okay.
I have my personal website, which I'll share with you. It's truly Bernadette. And I'm focused on working more with mothers in that area.
Love that.
And then my husband and I, we have Cosma Human, which is where the freebie is at right now. So I'm going to send you there.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it's a cosmic breathwork guide. It's just the breathwork we talked about. I'm calling it cosmic breathwork.
Love
And
it.
in there's a little of the science, a little of the spirit, a lot of what we talked about today, what can be expected. And then I added a QR code for playlist, some of my favorite songs that I love to breathe to there so that if whoever wants to breathe with it can breathe with it and experience it that way. And then also we discussed, doing something special for the audience and hosting just a breath work just for them. So I'll get you that information as well.
I love that. Yes, I was really excited to bring that to the community because after you listen to this type of conversation, you're like, oh, okay, I want to do that. And then you kind of get into it and you don't know where to go, and then you just forget about it and you leave it. It's like, don't leave this. Like
Hmm.
if this is resonating with you and you're curious about it, like Bernadette is literally offering you a killer deal to do a private breathwork session, and we can also join you in your monthly as well. But to do a private breathwork session, which is such a gift. It's like, how do you not do this? And it is creating space in your schedule, and dedicating that time to yourself and your own healing. I think it's so profound just to take those steps because I know as moms, so many things come up and we put ourselves on the back burner. I'm so over that. I did that for years. I do not do that anymore. And that changed my life.
Yeah.
Not that I'm number one, but I am priority because
Mhm.
when we are full, we can fill other people. When we're empty, I mean, we're monsters. Let's just be real.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We have to fill our cup first so that we can pour out and, out of abundance and fullness. And Yeah.
and love, and you're not giving with resentment, and that's I did that for years. It's like giving conditionally. It's like, but when we fill ourselves up because we're the only ones that can do it, it changes your life. And doing things like this, Bernadette, is so important and profound. And it's not like you need to go and plan a whole retreat, in Peru for a weekend to have this crazy experience. Like you can literally do it from your bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just, there is something that I like to tell people when we're doing it on Zoom is there is a period where I do offer, if you feel like you need to laugh, if you feel like you need to scream into a pillow, I do offer that in the online sessions. So you might want to let your family know just in case you're screaming.
I love it.
In
It's
case
an
you just have
emotional.
like this release, just
Love
for
that.
emotional release.
Oh my gosh, we need to do that. We need to release all this stuff we have pent up. And I think that can be scary for people. And in the same breath, when you are in that space, it's so natural. It's just
Yeah,
a natural release. It's just the body expressing, releasing. And afterwards, I know every single time after breathwork, I'm just like, wow, when can I do that again?
exactly.
Love it, Bernadette. Thank you so much. We met through a mutual friend, and I remember the first time we connected, and I was like, you're just so amazing. And I feel your heart. I really do. I feel your heart. I feel like the gift that you're bringing to the world. And I really believe that many people will receive that gift from this podcast. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's my honor. So I'm going to make sure, my friends, that we have two. We have your Truly Bernadette. So if you want to just connect with Bernadette that way. And then we have the Cosmo Human, right?
Yeah.
That website is where you're going to get the breathwork guide as well as an opportunity to schedule a breathwork session with Bernadette for a best deal. So don't give that up. So, all right, sound good? Is there anything else we want to leave the community with?
I think that if they have any questions at all,
Yeah.
feel free to message me on Instagram.
I love that.
I'm
What's
so
your handle on Instagram?
yeah, truly Bernadette.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
happy to answer questions. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Okay, thank you, Bernadette. Thank you, our beautiful community, and we'll catch you next time on the Hippie Moms Podcast. Bye.